watched it on TV.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
The Southern District of New York, at the same time as ourselves at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, we're looking at the so-called hush money payment issue. And then we learned from the Southern District of New York that they asked us to stand down. And by stand down, I mean they were communicating that they had this ongoing investigation and they wished that we put our efforts on hold while they completed their investigation. And obviously that was a discretionary call by me whether or not to do that, but I felt it was entirely appropriate. Obviously the Southern District of New York is it's an excellent organization with great leaders and prosecutors, and I felt that was appropriate for me to press the pause button.
Okay, so that was the former district attorney of Manhattan, Cyrus Vance. And Cyrus Vance is no longer the district attorney of the borough of Manhattan. Now Alvin Bragg is. So here's what's important to know as we, discuss what that stand down thing is about. Okay, so SDNY is it's the Southern District of New York office of the DOJ. It's federal. It's the Department of Justice. Okay. And your ultimate boss when you work in the Southern District of New York, even though Southern District of New York prides itself on being very independent from D.C., from Washington, Southern District of New York's ultimate boss is the Attorney General of the United States. At that point, it was Bill Barr. And Bill Barr wanted to kill the local investigation into the Michael Cohen hush money payments and the local investigation into the Trump Organization and tax fraud and the local investigation that was a civil case that was going on. And so the Department of Justice under Bill Barr called the elected borough district attorney, Cyrus Vance, and said, we need you to step back. We need you to stand down. We need you to quit your investigation into Michael Cohen and the hush money payments. You know why? You're stepping on the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice has this very large investigation going on. And we're going to look into all of these matters. And so you need to pause your investigation while we do ours. And Cyrus Vance decided that the Department of Justice and SDNY was, a very professional office. They had always had, this reputation for being independent of the Department of Justice, even though they are the Department of Justice. And so he would defer and he would shut down his investigation into Michael Cohen. Now, Cyrus Vance has a reputation for doing that with the Trump family before, and it didn't look good to New Yorkers. New Yorkers weren't having any of it because Cyrus Vance was looking at Ivanka Trump, okay, and also Junior for some time before Donald Trump was president for fraud that went into the sale of the Trump property in the Village in Manhattan, Trump Soho. And he was, he was talked into or decided that he wasn't going to go ahead and prosecute them for some fraud that he had found happened with the sale of apartments in Trump Soho in that building. So Cyrus Vance had a bad reputation with regard to prosecuting the Trumps prior. Well, Cyrus Vance is no longer the district attorney, as we all know, and Alvin Bragg is. And the district attorney in Manhattan represents the borough of Manhattan, and the state of New York is his boss, okay? Not the feds. It's a state thing. And so Alvin Bragg, after Cyrus Vance was told to stand down and said he agreed to do that, Alvin Bragg comes in and Alvin Bragg goes, I don't agree to do that. I'm doing an investigation. Know why? Because the Trump Organization was just convicted on 17 felony counts, okay? 17 guilty convictions for Donald Trump's companies. Something real is going on. Something prosecutable is going on. This is a fraudulent company that, laundered money for this hush money payment. And Donald Trump did it to, hide the payment. Michael Cohen went to jail for this crime. Donald Trump's not the president anymore. Bill Barr is not the AG. DOJ isn't, the SDNY doesn't answer to Bill Barr anymore. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. And he did it. Now, Bill Barr has subsequently admitted to, inserting himself into the Roger Stone case, into the Michael Flynn case, into the Michael Cohen case. And what he was trying to do was make those crimes go away, even for the people who pled guilty to them, so that the crimes didn't exist when Donald Trump was no longer president. I hope that was a good explanation for you about what's going on here, because that is what's going on here. And what's really frightening and gross is that Donald Trump stands on the stage and accuses Merrick Garland's Department of Justice, accuses Alvin Bragg's district attorney's office in the state of New York in the borough of Manhattan of doing exactly what Donald Trump's Department of Justice and what Cyrus Vance in Manhattan actually did in service of Donald Trump. It's not even projection anymore, because projection says that whatever I'm doing, I'm going to accuse you of. It's already happened. They've done it. And now they're accusing the current occupants of these offices of doing what they'd already done. Bill Barr was a fixer. After Michael Cohen was, pled guilty, Donald Trump needed a fixer, but he needed a presidential level fixer, somebody who understood government, which Donald Trump did not, somebody who understood what the Department of Justice could do, where it could assert itself, where it could, just get rid of charges, where it could say, and how do you get rid of charges? Well, you say that the predicate, the underlying theory of the case, was unjust to begin with. And this is what Bill Barr did with Crossfire Hurricane. This is what he did. This is why QAnon and freaks of nature out there think the Russia investigation was a hoax, because Bill Barr wanted you to. And that's why Bill Barr got out ahead of the Mueller report 3 weeks before he allowed you to see the redacted Mueller report, 3 weeks before, and told you, nothing to see here, move along. This droid means nothing to you. And literally use the force on you to try and blank out your mind from the fact that Flynn did plead guilty, from the fact that Manafort was in jail. In fact, Bill Barr got Manafort released from jail. Does anybody remember that?
Your reaction to the release of Paul Manafort from prison?
Well, it's highly suspicious. It seems to be another step in the politicization of the Justice Department, where the president's friends, people the president supports, are treated one way and everybody else is treated the other way. Just another example, like the outrageous decision to drop the prosecution of Michael Flynn after he stood up in court and swore under oath that he was in fact guilty.
So now everybody can see what has been going on at the Department of Justice in the Trump administration with the former Attorney General Bill Barr showing up and volunteering to be the new Michael Cohen, to be the new fixer. And in order to fix all of this crime, all of this, accountability, he had to say none of it happened.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
Reaction to the release of Paul Manafort from prison?
Well, it's highly suspicious. It seems to be another step in the politicization of the Justice Department, where the president's friends, people the president supports, are treated one way and everybody else is treated the other way. Just another example, like the outrageous decision to drop the prosecution of Michael Flynn after he stood up in court and swore under oath that he was in fact guilty. This is unprecedented, and we have a real problem with the Justice Department being subverted and politicized to be the personal agent of the president instead of the Department of Justice of the United States.
We reported the history of Bill Barr and this committee you run. Are there any plans to have Mr. Barr come back in to address all of this?
Well, yes. He had agreed to come in and testify before the committee on March 31st, as you pointed out, and that was put off. We've been in communication with them. And now that the District of Columbia has extended the stay-at-home order till June 8th, we are saying that we expect to see Barr in front of our committee on June 9th, the very next day.
So Bill Barr actually did go in and, he was like, yeah, whatever, it's, I interfere, Flynn, the predicate for the case, started talking legalese, basically saying the predicate for the case, that Michael Flynn pled guilty to was, erroneous. And so fruit of the poison tree, meaning if you opened up a case into Michael Flynn based on Crossfire Hurricane, which I'm telling you, was a hoax. It was illegitimate, okay, even though Mueller found, he indicted 37 people, and Donald Trump was guilty of obstruction of justice 10 different times, but he was president, so he couldn't be prosecuted. So Bill Barr understood what his job was, and his job was to say that the predicate for the entire Crossfire Hurricane investigation and anything that came from it, including Michael Flynn's confession of guilt, that it was all fruit of the poison tree, that it all had to be wiped away. All of it. Manafort, Flynn, everybody could, free pass because the predicate was wrong. There was no reason to open Crossfire Hurricane. And finally, in the end, we had the IG's report, and the IG at the Department of Justice said, no, that was a legitimate, predicate. That was a legitimate case that actually legitimately interfered in the 2016 election. The Russians had a troll farm. You indicted, because we don't have extradition with Russia. There will never be a trial of the people indicted as being the interferers in the Russian portion of the Russian interference into the 2016 election. And it's only because we don't have extradition. But they were charged, they were indicted for their part in it. That really did happen. Michael Flynn really did go sit and have dinner with Putin. Michael Flynn really did plead guilty after he was confronted with intercepts, with wires, with wiretapped intercepts. This is why Bill Barr goes, I really do think spying did occur. Because he's saying they had absolutely no business opening up Crossfire Hurricane in the first place. So whatever they found that Michael Flynn was doing and promising the Russians in exchange for their support can't be used. That's what fixers do. And that's what Bill Barr's job was. And that's what Bill Barr did. And you know why he did it? Do you? It's real simple. Bill Barr did it because he's an Opus Dei Catholic. Bill Barr did it so that he could be the Attorney General of the United States in the exact moment that 3 super uber Catholic, right-wing Catholics could be put on the Supreme Court with Donald Trump nominating them. That's why he did it. He did it to get the Supreme Court. Remember, in the end, Bill Barr is a lawyer, a big one, a huge one. And his love is the law. And he realizes that if Satan ever came back, he would come back as a lawyer. And if somebody wanted to ban abortion, if somebody wanted to take away the right to vote, if somebody wanted to gerrymander, if somebody wanted to do, they would need the Supreme Court to do it legally. And so Bill Barr went about making illegal things legal by saying whatever illegality happened during the investigation called Crossfire Hurricane, during the investigation of Robert Mueller, whatever you got as a result of that investigation doesn't exist anymore because the investigation shouldn't have existed. And I'm telling you that, and that's what you're going to believe. Even though the Inspector General in the end said, oh no, it was a legitimate investigation. It needed to happen. And that is what happened. That is what occurred here. Okay? And everybody was being asked, what turns a guy like Flynn? Like, everybody knew what happened. What turns a guy like Flynn? And Barry McCaffrey actually laid it out for you, the part that everybody played. Bill Barr's part has never really been exposed. I think I'm the only person that will tell you that it is my opinion that Bill Barr did all this to get the Supreme Court, okay? I really, in my deepest heart of hearts, believe that that's why Bill Barr showed up. That's why Bill Barr volunteered himself to be Trump's fixer is because the dark money, the donors trust people, the Kerry Severinos, the Leonard Leos, okay, they all needed Bill Barr to be in there at that moment when they could seize the Supreme Court. They needed Bill Barr, a guy like Bill Barr. And Bill Barr figured, this is how I do it. This is how I get in there. I become the Attorney General. And the reason I will be picked is because I will promise Donald Trump that I could get rid of all the convictions. Flynn's, Manafort's, Cohen's, everybody who pled guilty. I can get rid of all of it for him so that there are no conspiracies existing once he leaves office, if he ever leaves office or whatever. And that's why Bill Barr was not opposed to Donald Trump losing the election, because he already got what he came for, right? And that's why at the end he said, well, I'm not going to help him fix the election. I mean, I have no reason to, but he had every reason to fix these investigations at the time for Donald Trump. So he could be there and make sure Donald Trump picked the guys on the people on the list that the Federalist Society wanted picked for the Supreme Court. So that's why he did it. Why did Michael Flynn do it? Why did Michael Flynn turn? Why did Michael Flynn become a Russian agent? Well, that's easy.
It was alarming to see him enjoying a banquet dinner with Putin on the Russia television coverage of that event early on. But what turns a man like Mike Flynn?
I don't know. I saw him in Afghanistan, and he was an important part of the McChrystal effort to stop terrorism from coming back to American shores. So he's a very capable intelligence officer. He got the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and he failed there. And he essentially got fired by the Pentagon and by President Obama. Then he started to go off the deep end. So, I mean, all the way through the campaign where he's chanting, lock her up, this is not the language we expect.
From the director of intelligence. So that's what happened to Flynn. Flynn got fired. Flynn failed at his job at DIA. He failed. He was fired. And he was full of revenge. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.